is it just they wanted to have a little girl doing a little girl thing, or like is ballet something more? Like why ballet? Why couldn't it be tap?
I
Why
mean,
could
that's a great question.
Wait, no, I want to see this movie where it's tap and she's tapping in all their blood.
Yeah.
Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
See dead people.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie,
And Nikisha.
where we share our love for all things scary and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone. We have our lenses. We are ready to chat. It's going to be a good time because today we are talking about the 2024 horror film Abigail. Or Abigail, as for some reason my brain likes to read that word. I was like, where did I get that from?
Abigail.
Abigail.
That is that's the last name of the character from Catch Me If You Can, Frank Abagnale Jr.
Thank you. Because like I know it's coming from somewhere in the subconscious.
Yeah,
because why would I ever think of that name?
That's exactly where it's coming from.
Frank Abagnale. Oh, what a great movie.
Great movie.
Again, another Oscar snub, but that he should have got something for that one. That was great.
Great movie.
But we're talking about Abigail, our little favorite torturous vampire child. And this film was directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett. You probably have heard us say their names before. They worked together on Ready or Not and the new Scream chain. So they're coming together again for this, and it stars Alicia Ware alongside Melissa Barrera, Dan Stevens, Catherine Newton, hey girl, Lisa Frankenstein, Will Catlett, Kevin Durand, Angus Cloud, R.I.P., and Giancarlo Esposito, our favorite villain / older man with the creamy, soothing voice. To me, he's like the next Morgan Freeman as far as like actors, older actors. I just love him.
Man, I love actor stories like that specifically, where it's like has been in a million things over the course of a million years. Like he's in Do the Right Thing. Like he's like always in a ton of movies. And then as an older man, he gets this like, or as an older actor, I should say, he just in terms of like casting and all of that goes with that, you know, he gets this breakout role that, you know, really becomes something on Breaking Bad. And then like, his career just takes a total different turn, and it just, you know, it makes you feel good about actors getting the work after they've put in the work, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, he's the head of VOT, guys. The Boys is coming out soon.
Wait, did you know that he was born in Copenhagen? Just like random fun fact.
Oh no, that is a fun fact,
right?
Yes. I love that. He's so stylish too. I like it. He also just seems like a really nice guy. So this is our personal endorsement for Giancarlo Esposito.
If you ever want to hang out with us, come on the pod. You know, you're more than welcome. Hit us up.
We'll have a nice little chat. It'll be a fun time. So obviously heavy spoilers for Abigail, and Jamie, hit us with those trigger warnings.
This movie is bloody.
Ooh.
This movie, as Nikisha mentioned, this movie's about vampires, which like I was like gonna say spoiler, but also like they spoil. This is a trailer failure to the nines.
Oh, yes. Big time.
Yes.
So if you don't like things about vampires, this film might not be for you. It is quite violent and gory. There is loads of insides on the outside, decapitations, just like so much blood everywhere, like, you know, body parts, wounds, I'm trying to even remember, like it was just so much. It's like constant and overwhelming, and like just imagine like buckets of blood being poured on people, and like that's like what everybody looks like by the end of this movie.
Yeah.
I want to say parental neglect as a
Yeah.
Yes.
trigger warning.
Child abandonment.
Yeah.
In like multiple, like it's like a theme, a main theme, I would say, in this film, especially in like the second and third act.
Yes.
Like references to the like the mob, essentially, the seedy
Oh, yeah.
underbelly of the city, bad cops, substance use. Am I missing things? I feel like I'm missing a lot.
Explosions, body explosions, dumb people.
Yeah.
Um,
Dumb people.
If you don't, honestly, I could have used a
Aw.
dumb person trigger. That's such a what a great thing.
And a
should
fun
really
trope.
provide those for me for the future.
Yes.
also, meta is
Yeah.
Angus. This is Angus Cloud's, I believe, last performance.
Mhm.
So if a actor passing away and then seeing them again kind of is something, then that's a meta kind of trigger, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I didn't know that he was in the movie until I was watching it and it's like, oh shit. Okay, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Anything else, Jamie?
Yeah. Like wooden stakes. I mean, also like they are ultimately it's like watching adults contend with a child. So like just visually watching,
Sure.
like, them go toe to toe with like a young child.
Yeah, for sure.
Taking the context of the movie out of it, like that might be disturbing.
Fair.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, let's get into all of that. But have you guys, well, first off, producer Brian, can you give us some words before we get into it? I'm just excited to talk about this.
Oh yeah. Hi everybody. Hi YouTube. We're on YouTube. So if you're
Hey.
listening to us, you can find our YouTube channel. We are at Talk Horror Pod on all social media, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Find us there. Yeah, I'm excited to talk Abigail. A real nice surprise of a movie after the trailer failure. And like, it's hard to say. When I first saw the trailer, I thought it was a failure. And I mean that from like that just seemed like the major plot point. But I understand why that's used as marketing, because if it's not, you don't know what this movie is about. And it doesn't do as well. It didn't do that great in movie theaters anyway. It did pretty poorly. But like, I don't know. I just think that there's a fine line between, because there is so much more to this movie just because it's a lot of fun. But like, that still is the twist. Like there's another twist at the end. Like there's more twists and stuff like that. This movie to me was very predictable, but you that still is a huge like turning point in the film, but it is what it's about. So I don't know. That you're watching me in real time kind of question if it is trailer failure or not.
Yes.
I enjoyed this movie a lot. Would I have enjoyed it more if that was the twist? I don't necessarily know, because I probably would have thought that the first 30 minutes was really slow if I didn't know where it was going. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think like figuring out how to frame the movie. I mean, I guess if they didn't know how else to like present this movie, like frame it without revealing like what feels like a major plot twist, then it just makes me kind of question like how strong, like it seems like a strong enough concept, but like, yeah, how do you then piece together a trailer to entice people to come see the movie without revealing that? I mean, I feel like, I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, could they have shown like each of the, like the cronies being knocked off one by one, and it's like, what the hell is going on? Are we like in a trap? I mean, you can make us perceive maybe the home is booby trapped or something like that.
Yes.
And then the actual reveal of the movie is like, no, it's the little girl.
Yeah,
I agree 1,000%.
Yeah,
1,000%.
Totally. No, that's a good point. I also think you could lean into the radio silence aspect of things, like the people who brought you the new Scream movies, the people who brought you Ready or Not, like this is their newest thing, and then you just show like the tons of blood without really showing what's happening.
Yes.
But I do understand Megan wise Mithrigan, just like
Mhm.
trying to like create this like interesting viral like thing. Like I don't know the answer to the question, but I think it's and I'm sure that the studios had this conversation and argument
Well,
as well
that was
back and
the
forth.
other, yeah, that's the other major thing I was thinking about is like this movie was released by Universal Pictures.
Mhm.
Universal Pictures owns Dracula. It's like not that hard to jump to a conclusion of like they own the Universal Monster universe. So
Right.
like if we know that they're producing a horror movie and something suspicious is going on, like it's kind of not that unintuitive to narrow down potentially. At least that's how I feel, especially because like they've really been on their Dracula kick recently. Like we've gotten a ton of recent movies that are centered around not just vampires but specifically Dracula.
Yeah.
So I feel like it wouldn't be that shocking with some of what happens in this movie where without them explicitly saying it, that like even if they implied more that they of like that Dracula existed without like making the connection, maybe I don't know, I feel like
I also I also think to that point, I'm thinking I remember when it was announced what Radio Silence's next movie was going to be. The plot was revealed. It was like, kidnappers, accidentally take Dracula's daughter and like chaos ensues. Like I remember the plot being out there way before a trailer was there. So like at what
yeah.
point do you just like not reveal the details? You know what I mean?
So I think that it's because this project, so I like learned some things when I was like listening to podcasts talking about the same thing before it came out. And
Mhm.
this project was originally titled Dracula's Daughter, which is another existing Universal Picture movie from 1936. So it's like, like a reimagining essentially.
Yeah.
Um but again, it's like that movie was called Dracula's Daughter, so I guess they were already okay with the idea of it being like part of the story. But like, I guess the problem still lies in like how they presented it in the trailer, because the
Mhm.
trailer makes it seem like that's the big reveal, and that's why that was the original name of the movie. And so then for them to switch it, it's like, is there a different way that we can like we can't unlearn this information, but like
Right. You
is
can't
there then
hide
a
it.
different yeah is there a different way where you could have presented the trailer at least,
Mhm.
that wasn't necessarily that this is like the core like reveal or
Yeah.
story. I don't know.
No, but I
Oh,
mean
it's a
that's
good
absolutely
question.
correct. If the information is already out there, you just changing the name is not going to undo the fact that we already
Yeah,
know what the premise
we
of this
know.
is.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you go in and have a trailer that's something different and you're like, "Oh, well maybe it could be something,
Hmm.
that's not this. Maybe they did change directions." But
Yeah.
yeah, that's so interesting, and I'm excited to get into how that affected how you guys watched this. But first, we need a plot summary of this movie, as we are already kind of going deep into what it is and it's about. So, producer
Yes.
Brian, you have 2 minutes to give us the plot summary of Abigail, and Jamie will time you.
What's the plot?
I will. And I just pulled a Brian and I almost opened my calculator.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
tough times out here in this in this
They're not
calculator
even
timing
in the
world.
same place. All right. So, as Nikisha mentioned, producer Brian, you have 2 minutes on the clock. Are you ready to recount what goes down in Abigail, in Dracula's Daughter?
Yes, I will try my best.
Great. Ready, steady, go.
So a group of thugs essentially are hired to kidnap a very high-ranking mob boss's daughter. The guy named Lambert, who's played by Giancarlo Esposito, gets a crew together. They kidnap her and then bring them back to location. They just have to keep her there for the night. That's like Marissa. In that crew is like Catherine Newton, Melissa Barrera. Um, um, Dan Stevens, Kevin Durant, all those people. Anyway, they're just in the house. They're all trying to get to know each other, whatever it is. They find out that the person that they're actually kidnapping is that mob boss's daughter. Anyway, everything the crazy stuff starts happening, and and some of them end up dying, and they're like, what the hell is happening, like dying in gruesome ways. And then, long story short, we find out, shocking, the little girl is a vampire. And so she starts to like take them out one by one. She turns Catherine Newton into a vampire and is controlling her. She's a little ballerina too, so that's just like a kitschy fun thing that was included in everything. I think they finally capture her, because the drug they use to subdue her at the beginning still works. And we find out that she is actually behind all of it. Lambert, the Giancarlo Esposito character, is under her control as a vampire. She still kills all of the, she's taking them out one by one, but she did it because all of them have wronged her father, and her father ignores her. And so she wants to gain her father's respect. At the end of the day, she and Melissa Barrera become friends, because Melissa Barrera like abandoned her kid because she was a drug addict. Dan Stevens becomes a vampire, and then they both kill Dan Stevens. Dracula shows up, takes his daughter away, and lets Melissa Barrera go to go find her son. End of movie.
And that's the plot.
Yes.
The thing I missed in there is a ton of blood.
There is so much blood, so many kind of fun kills, so many unexpected kills, in my opinion, too. So let's get into it with our first segment of likes and gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
And I want to start off mostly because Brian was talking about, and she's a ballerina, just because. And that made me think, like, yeah, is it just they wanted to have a little girl doing a little girl thing? Or, like, is ballet something more? Like, why ballet? Why couldn't it be tap?
I mean,
why could,
that's a great question.
Wait, no, I want to see this movie where it's tap and she's tapping in all their blood.
Yeah. Why could modern dance? A little Suspiria, like,
oh my god,
like
Totally.
why does it have to be? And I guess my only reasoning is because it's like a dainty girl thing, and that plays into like the weak little girl, and she's just doing ballet, and she can't harm anybody, and playing that kind of perspective to like just juxtapose, I guess, her being like a villainous actual vampire.
I think that's a part of it. I also think that you get to use the classical music, which like enhances a vibe and a tone. I
For sure.
also think that the some of the scenes are like, it just adds a different, like, it adds a classic vibe to it, like a cultured vibe to it, kind of the way like opera is used in certain movies, as like they're watching opera and something
Fair.
crazy is happening, or they're going to the opera. I think it like juxtaposes the elegance of like her family versus like these thugs that are like kidnapping her.
Yeah.
But also like, yeah, it's good marketing.
Yes. Well, and also then to your point too, Brian, about the using the music, it's always fun when classical music is being used in absurd ways. And
it's one of my favorite things in horror movies, for sure.
yes. So it's definitely nice. Even though, like Jamie said, I would have loved to have seen her tap dance like in their guts or something, But it was fun to just hear
like I'm gonna grab an intestines. Like,
yeah.
Hello, my darling. Hello, my darling. Hello, my darling.
Right.
Please.
A fun time. I digress about that. But
no,
it was just funny
I
when
think
you
this is
mentioned it.
important stuff.
But aside from the trailer failure that we discussed, I did have a fun time watching it, because if it just leans into the camp of it all, then I'm gonna be invested in it. Like the minute that you try to be more than that, especially when you've already given away so much information, then that's when the movie starts to dip for me. But I thought that the kills were very interesting. I mean, I love a bloody mess. what got me though was the rules. What was funny to me were the rules, and we have to talk about the rules.
Oh, that's my number one gripe of this movie: the rules.
Yes, yes.
Because you go first, and then I'll jump on the rules train.
Yeah, I want to find what I said
Woo-hoo.
in my notes about it because
Yeah.
uh it was it, it was like, okay, what do we know about vampires? Like the garlic, the stake to the heart, the sunlight. But then they try to go about doing some of the things at first and nothing kind of happens. So I put in my notes, so nothing works in the vampire killing trope except then sunlight, okay? But then also a stake, okay?
Okay. Yeah. So, if I may,
Please.
my issue is with the end.
Mm.
Because to me, up until that point, okay, I like when I really like in horror movies when it's like a vampire or a werewolf or something like that, and they're like, okay, like you just said, what are the things we know? Garlic, we know steaks, we know this, and
Mhm.
and I like that they need to kind of do the checklist and figure what works on them. I'm totally
Yes.
into that. What I didn't like about this movie is it was very unclear about like the chain of command when it comes to vampires. Because,
Mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong, we learned that Abigail bit Lambert, and then Lambert bit turned the what's his name?
Kevin or something, or
Frank, detective, the NYPD detective
Yeah.
Frank, into a vampire. And then Frank kills Lambert. Okay, fine. That's totally fine. But then at Frank bites the Melissa Barrera character, and then when she kills Frank, basically she says that Abigail says like you don't have to worry about it. You killed the person that blah blah blah.
that
So
bit you, yeah.
so shouldn't when he killed Lambert, shouldn't that have like turned him? We don't get there are of course there are holes that we could fill. Like if you kill
Yeah.
your own master, you retain your thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But that still doesn't make like because Melissa Barrera still kills him, so that doesn't make sense. Maybe because he made him drink the blood and he turned faster. Like there are little things like, but like from a straight up I needed more specific rules. Like I'm okay with like people turn at different like size like time frames and stuff like that, but that just left me so angry because we're a rules podcast. Like
Yes.
it's very like if this wasn't called Talking Horror, would have been called like Give Me Rules, baby. Like that would be.
But
It
we're
would've
saving. We're
been.
holding on to that name, so don't take it.
Right. We're
I
gonna
know.
trademark it. It's gonna be great.
That really bothered me. I just
No,
want to
but
say that.
and even but you know what? I'll add to that, Brian. A gripe of mine was the timeline of when you turned, because
Yeah.
like I
Okay.
need to know what is it like. But then you mentioned like, okay, Giancarlo made him drink the blood, and maybe that's what had him turn like a little bit faster. But also, I don't buy that in the grand scheme of like the world that has been presented to us, especially when we already had like our first vampire turn happen, like a little bit before that. It's just like give me the rules. Melissa Barrera's character, obviously it's like you got bit, but then you want to wake up and assume that she had turned. Yeah, so that was a little muddy for me. Like give me a direct line, tell me exactly what's going to actually kill the vampire. And yes, if you bite who, or if you kill who bit you, like you have autonomy, okay, whatever. But yeah, I agree, Brian, I just needed a little bit more clarity on like exactly the chain of command, when do you turn, and what things actually like kill a vampire.
Before to one of the things I liked about the rules is when he thinks he's controlling Melissa Barrera and she's faking it and she's not.
Yeah.
And then Abigail says something to the effect of like, "You think you can do that right away? It took me like generations to perfect that." Like
Yes.
I was also into the fact that like she turned the Catherine Newton character and was able to kind of control her like behind the scenes. Like until she said that, it bothered me that like she could do that and other people couldn't. But that line made me feel better about that. So like
Yeah.
just putting in a line here or there that explain, even though it's very exposition-y, I need it as an audience member because I love rules.
Well, and it's not even just the rules, it's the fact that there are so many vampire movies that have different kinds of rules. Make
Set
sure that
yourself
you
up.
set,
Yeah,
yes, the right rules
totally.
in this movie so
Yeah,
that we know what the rules are for this. Because the fact that she like smelled the garlic and threw it away, it's like, okay,
yeah,
well, we know that garlic doesn't work in this
yeah.
Mhm.
world of vampires. Like, set it up to let us know.
And set yourself apart. Some of the reason why some zombie movies are great and some aren't is because it kind of separates itself from what you know zombie movies to be. A good
Exactly.
example is maybe I think there are two good examples in my personal opinion. Um, even though people don't consider it a zombie movie here or there, but the 28 Days Later, the rules are very clear. It's super different. You know, certain sequences in that movie, like the blood dropping in the eye, like
Mm.
are just like really excellent like demonstrations of how things can affect you in that world. And then the other one is whether you like it or not, I really like on the TV show The Walking Dead
Hmm.
that um if you die you become a like
Yes.
like everybody becomes a zombie essentially.
Hmm.
And I think that that is something that sets it apart and interesting, that makes it specific. If you're going to do a vampire movie, your rules have to be specific to your world. um they have to be generic, like you know, like the generic vampire rules where like everybody knows what they are, so you don't have to do any double thinking. I don't know
Right.
what double think, but you know what I mean, that you just
Yes.
base it on what you know already, or
Yeah.
you create your own little, you know, quirks of being a vampire and you lean into that and own it.
Yeah.
um
Like
and I don't
Twilight. It's like the
Yeah,
sunlight.
totally.
They're just sparkling in the sunlight. They don't necessarily die in the sunlight.
No,
Mhm.
just shimmer, baby.
Just a cute shimmer,
Yeah.
you know.
Anyway, sorry.
No, but I agree. Um, a couple other like little things. I love creepy houses. Like, bring
Mm.
back creepy houses. I want to be walking around stuff that looks like the haunted mansion at fucking Disney. Like, people shuffling around trying to find things, cobwebs, all the things. It just like puts you in the right atmosphere, and I just really loved it. And I just was really a fan of. I was a fan of that house. So like, bring back all of that.
Mhm.
Um, I was questioning, like, how does this girl know how to maneuver through all this house? But it's because she brought all of them there to
Right.
like just die and bite them. So um, another small gripe that I had was the teeth that they put on Catherine Newton's character after she turned,
Uh-huh.
because it, to me, just didn't seem like it, and this is so small, but it just didn't seem like it fit her face like it did all of the rest of the vampires.
Interesting.
So it just took me out of it because it's like it was too extreme,
Hmm.
and it was just like, okay, like y'all could have done better prosthetics like for it, because it like fit for all every other vampire character, like the teeth fit in it, but for hers it just seemed like it was so out of the box to where it was just kind of like a caricature of what was happening in that world. So I was
Sure.
just like, come on guys, let's do this.
Okay.
But I loved that sequence of her getting bit and being with that the big muscle guy that was like the dumb one, which I don't
Mhm.
know, I love that trope too, and like he
And
played
he's
it
a
very well.
wonderful actor.
He is.
He's in the most recent Planet of the Apes movie, The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes,
Oh,
or whatever the new
nice.
one's called.
Mm.
Kingdom of the
He's just
Planet of the Apes or something. Yeah.
he's just so, in everything I've ever seen him, he's just like, he's so solid. I'm really happy that he's getting like his moment right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I thought that all of the acting was really well done. But yeah, definitely just predictable in what was going to happen. Another movie where the black character dies, and I was upset because I would really wanted him to live, but
Mhm.
he got, and it's like, okay, here we go. Um, and I don't know why I put this, but this is so random. I put these tropes of people in bad situations, like illegal things because they have bad like family situations. Um, but for some reason, I put that it's like Jumanji, but in horror movies, and I don't know what I was thinking for the comparison
I
of
mean,
that, or maybe just being put in like a world when they're coming from like something else. I don't know.
I don't
Um,
know. That's very funny to me.
yeah, I don't know what I was
yeah,
thinking
maybe
when
Also,
running
the
around the.
original Jumanji is terrifying. So.
I'm trying to
I
think,
mean,
running
it
around
is
the house.
terrifying.
I mean, there's a lot of neglectful parenting in the original Jumanji movies.
Oh, fair.
Also true.
Yeah.
Oh, the original one with Robin Williams. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, it was definitely a wild trip. Also, the whole fighting sequence between Frank and Abigail at the end, whoever was the actress who was the contortionist in it was fantastic. Because there was like one move where she like bends backwards or like falls
Oh,
backwards. That was a really fun shot.
Mm.
And I thought that was like really fun. But yeah, overall, it's kind of like you already know what you're going to get. So it's nothing that's really kind of new that is added into this. But the actors did a great job with what they were given, I think, as far as script wise. And it was just like a fun, lighthearted time. Nothing that's too, revolutionary in the sense of like campy horror. But like we mentioned before, it's like do something different in the trailer so that it can be a surprise to us. But I wasn't completely disappointed when I
yeah.
watched the movie. It was a fun watch through. And I think that playing into the tropes of like the neglectful mom, the cop that goes bad, the rich girl who just wants to do this for fun,
Mm-hmm.
the muscle. I just thought that they did a really good casting all of those people to play those roles. So
Yeah.
yeah, those are my
Um,
likes and gripes.
cool.
Who would like to go next?
I'll add some to that. I like this movie a lot. We saw it in theaters and had just an absolute blast. It's a perfect like companion piece, if you will, to Ready or Not. Maybe just specifically
Mm-hmm.
about people exploding in tons of blood. Um, I think that it's like Nikisha. I think it's perfectly cast. I think everybody is engaging and funny. And quite frankly, I think the exposition in this movie, especially that like 30 minutes, 20 minutes of slow burn into what's happening, I think the exposition is really good. Like the scene where they're drinking and some people aren't drinking, and she's like
Mm-hmm.
guessing what all their deals are. Like I
Mm.
love scenes like that in movies like this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this movie balances really well our affinity for the main characters, but not enough that we're not rooting for them to die. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, even though we really like the big doofus, like, I was excited to see him being taken down. You know
Sure.
what I mean? Like, that's that type
Mm-hmm.
of stuff. They were engaging and relatable enough, but not enough for me to want them to live to the end.
Yeah.
I
Sorry, big doofus.
Sorry, big doofus. I don't know on rewatch if that first half hour will hold up again
Yeah.
because it's
Hmm.
just exposition. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
get me into the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I really had a fun time with this. I think it's just a blast. I do have gripes. We talked about the rules. Another gripe I have about this movie is I think that the weird like chemistry subplot with like the military sniper kind of like having the hots for the Melissa Barrera character in that one moment. I think that was completely a waste of our time. Like
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
it was presented as if they knew each other before the movie started, and like, but like, were they just like, kind of like getting horny like in the moment with each other? Like, I thought that was so unnecessary. You could just have them trying to create, you know, allies in each other without like that weird like, come find me later type of bit. Uh,
Yeah.
that like just didn't work for me at all. I thought it was a
Mm-hmm.
waste of time. Um, I think that the third act of this movie is a little bit long and a little bit generic. Um,
Mm.
I thought that the um, even with the great effects and the energy that it had, it just felt like another fight where we're like two people are fighting for power. Like I don't know how I don't have a suggestion of what to replace it with, but it just felt really long.
Yeah.
And I was just like ready to get to Dracula's appearance already because we
You
were
were ready or not.
I was ready
Oh.
or not. Um I was really happy, another positive, that Dracula was not like Brad Pitt or like a like a like super famous actor.
Yeah.
I
Like the
like,
reveal.
yeah, like I was
Mhm.
really happy that Dracula was Matthew Good, who I think is a spectacular actor. I like him in everything I've ever seen him in. Um, and I think he would be an awesome Dracula if we see the Dracula movie. But I was just happy that it was him,
Mhm.
or an actor of his caliber, but not like bring in like George Clooney or something like that. You know,
Mhm.
like something
Right.
random like that. Um, yeah, I just had a really fun time. I'm curious of what this is like on rewatch, just
Same.
because of all of the lead up to the reveal is good the first time. I don't wonder if the exposition still works. Oh, I'll also say a gripe. This movie to me was uber predictable. Like
Yes.
Mhm.
like like Jamie and I knew the second this movie, because we knew she was a vampire. Jamie and I like immediately put together the like she's doing all of she's the one behind all of this. Like she
Mhm.
is the one. Like they give so many like blatant clues and whatnot, and but I liked how the little girl, the character, and the script allowed her to like mess with all their heads. Like she's just this
Mhm.
very good manipulator, and I appreciated that. Um, I liked her and Melissa Barrera's relationship, and I liked Melissa Barrera's performance. Um, Even though the like leaving your son because I was on drugs and I can't go back and I can't forgive myself feels very cliche, I thought she brought some like real new young energy to it, in a good way. Um, and all the quips and stuff that come from Radio Silence were super fun. So all in all, I really did like this movie, despite having some like very niche flaws, if you will.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Mhm.
Jamie?
Agreed. You said a lot of things that I agree with. As a side note, I don't know why I didn't make this connection until I was like Wikipediaing this movie. But did you know that she's Matilda in Matilda the musical movie that they made for
Nope, did not put that
Netflix?
together. I that
What?
of course she
Yeah.
is.
Right? Like
Oh
after
my
I
god, of
saw
course
that
she
and then my
is.
brain just like put them together, I was like, "Holy cow."
That
So I just
makes
wanted
all
to
the sense.
blow all of our collective minds.
That makes total sense.
Wow.
Mhm.
Done.
Okay.
Yeah, I just thought that
Love
was
that.
cool.
I mean,
Thank
she's
you.
an
Um,
incredible actress.
Yeah,
yeah,
that really
and
clicked
like,
it together. That was good.
and you had mentioned the ballet thing, but like, she learned all of that like just for this and did
For
all of her
this.
own stunts. Yeah, like I don't know. I agree with you. Like, I don't really know what the purpose of that was, except to
Right.
like showcase a like this is a stereotypical little girl activity, and she's just really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is cool that she like did all of her own stunts.
Yeah.
Again, like
Yeah.
I'm pro practical anything, so like that's very impressive to me. And
Absolutely.
overall, I do want to say like I thought that she was really a standout in this movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When they finally like capture her and she's like in the cell and they're talking to her, she delivers this like really effective monologue where she's basically like, you don't know who each like who you all are, but like I'm gonna tell you all.
Mm-hmm.
And just like goes off and like calls them all out, and like it's so I just think that she's like very very effective in this role of like both, you know, trying to pretend to be this like coy little girl, but then really it's like this person who has lived a very long and deeply lonely life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like emphasis on the lonely, and like not just lonely but also like longing for a particular type of affection, and you get
Mm-hmm.
that from like a lot of her interactions, especially between like her and Melissa Barrera, who like, yes, Melissa Barrera is being played a lot of the time, but like there are these really genuine moments that you see in Abigail. And so like I think that she like she kind of has to be a bunch of different personalities, and I think she's really effective at all of them.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good point. And also, like, tied in with that monologue is the reveal that she could have gotten out of that cage at any time.
Exactly.
So like
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
and even just like the moments of her dancing with the headless body, and you know,
so
like
funny.
there's a joy in what she's doing and a sadness to
Yes.
it that Jamie had mentioned, and like that was like pretty spectacular. I think when Jamie and I were talking after the movie, I related it to the Eternals movie where
Mm.
the
Mm.
young actress in that movie who plays the someone who's supposed to have been live for centuries. Like, it didn't feel lived in, whereas her
No,
performance in Abigail really,
does.
really feels that
That feels like
loneliness.
someone who has been alive for a very
Yeah,
long time.
Yes.
And
totally.
like really know, like, it doesn't feel like they can be, caught off guard by things, or like just knows everything at this point. It's like you can't trick me, you can't trap me, you can't fool me. Like, I've
Yeah.
seen it all. And like
Right.
like you really read that on her face and on her performance. I definitely agree that, like, yeah, for another character who's supposed to present as like they look physically young, but they've lived a very long life, they still acted very young and immature, and it like didn't quite compute. And like, yes, there's going to be a degree of immaturity here, because you're still that's what your brain wants to, like, you're seeing a little girl, your brain wants to register little girl. So like whatever
Yes.
you're reading is like, that kind of young resistance is going to read as immaturity, I think, no matter
Mhm.
what. But I think that like what really stood out was her performance of actually like presenting as someone who's lived for centuries.
Totally.
Yeah.
So shout out to her. Very good, very excellent job.
Good job, Matilda.
Good job, Matilda.
Yes.
And another person who I very surprisingly have to
Uh-oh.
shout out
Uh-oh.
is Catherine Newton.
What?
I know. As I've mentioned on this podcast before, I had this weird, unnameable like dislike for Catherine Newton. And I truly, I wish I could give like a real reason why. But like I don't know. I'm just like I'm a weird person, and I'm a weird like petty grudge holder. And but I don't have a good explanation for it. So it's just like I will harbor this forever. Until now. There was something about Catherine Newton's performance in this that really like shifted the pendulum the opposite direction. And I told Brian like immediately after we watched this movie in theaters, and he was like shocked.
Yes.
But it was like, I don't know, there was something that felt more, I think part of it was like I'm tired of seeing her as like only playing these like more villainous characters. And while like, yes, it's this person who like is like comes from a background of privilege and is like, yeah, I just want to like, break into this house, tee like I have nothing better to do, also
Yeah.
not great. However, there was something that just like felt a lot more like silly and less serious about it all that I really liked. But the actual standout moment for me was the part where she's possessed by Abigail. And
Yeah.
it was like, it wasn't just Catherine Newton playing a character. It was Catherine Newton playing two characters. And like that, for whatever reason, like really, really did it for me, because she has to then like pretend to be Abigail, pretending to be herself.
Yeah.
And so it's like the other layers of that, I just found it really funny. And like that kind of shed my distaste for her. And I thought that like in that moment, she like that particular performance really, really stood out to me. And I was like, I think I like Catherine Newton now. So we'll see moving
Yeah.
forward if my feelings remain the same. But I did have to like apologize for growth. It's important to speak on this growth publicly and address these things.
Yes.
I will always be transparent about righting my wrongs. And
Love that.
I hope to see more of Catherine Newton and feel the same way, hopefully. But no, I thought she did a really funny job. I liked that the teeth like didn't fit her mouth. It was like oversized and weird. It just, I don't know, it like all kind of added to that experience of like, it just felt really silly and over the top, but like that also felt very radio silency. So I was like okay with that in that moment. It just felt like aligned with like, I don't know, their other things and like their style. So I was willing to like overlook how like just her mouth looked so weird with the teeth. But I thought it was also because it's like, yeah, she's like also imagining Abigail being in someone else's body, and like even if she's learned how to control other people, that it's probably still really weird for her to like go into someone else, right? Like
For sure.
just like conceptually, it's like, what's it mean for you to like control someone else's mind? Like there's probably still some like discomfort around that. And I feel like that comes out in like, not everything is going to look exactly perfect the same way. or like the teeth really standing out as like being imperfect. So like those were some of the things that I was willing to kind of let go because that's how I justified it in my brain.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that.
I think you all mentioned a lot of my gripes. The only other gripe that I really had, Nikisha, you brought up the house or like the mansion rather.
Mhm.
Lovely home. I loved it. I would love to live there. My whole my why did they go there? Like I don't understand why the plan was like take this girl to this like random mansion. Like what a weird part of a plan that like seemingly nobody
It's like
questioned.
questioned.
And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and like who like it's clear that like the Lambert character was like you'll bring her to this address, but like there's no way that they wouldn't have looked up the address ahead of time before enacting this plan. And I feel like at some point someone would have been like, why are we bringing this person that we're kidnapping to a giant mansion that none of us have ever been to before, that we will not have had the time to like sweep and evaluate if it's like, you know, a good space to bring her into? Like that just seemed like a huge flaw. Like why would you bring her to like I mean I've never kidnapped someone, so I
Interesting.
can't speak directly to this, but like I don't know, in every other movie it's like a warehouse that like they own, that they have like experience physically being present in for a long time. So like why would they take her to a place that they've literally never been to before? That just seemed really silly to me. And I was like, they just brought this girl to her house. Like,
Right.
why?
Yeah,
Right.
I mean that. So to me, that's the question. It's just like you brought her to this like weird place. Like, you know, if they all trust Lambert, like they'll assume that it was vetted and all of that, and like this is a very
But only
top
one of
secret
them knew
thing.
Lambert.
Yeah, I mean, but
So it's like it makes even less sense.
yeah, I guess there's a lot of like trust in there, but I agree that like that just seems weird. Like we're bringing it to this, and then all of a sudden it's her house. I would even argue that it's weirder. It gives it away from a narrative audience perspective, because like it's like, oh, you're bringing to this creepy house. Like, of course it's hers. You know, that's also
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
it felt predictable,
Yeah.
because it felt like they brought her to her house. You know, like there's a lot there that makes that like if you're really like paying attention, like it just like it doesn't make sense.
It gives it away.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 So that was I just like, really? Like could go anywhere else.
Totally fair.
All
Truly
other
anywhere else.
options were rented out. Like not even an Airbnb could have resolved this.
Right.
I'm dead.
Like I get that
But-
everything was set up with the cameras and everything in that house, but like it's just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like that was like, aside from like, you know, it was very predictable and things like that. And again, like I did also really have a fun time watching this. I think it's silly to compare this to like Ready or Not, because I just feel like they're fundamentally different movies, in the same way that I'm not going to compare Abigail to like the Scream movies. I just feel like even if it's within like the Radio Silence, like, you know, movie like
World, yeah.
filmography, it doesn't I don't feel this need to like compare everything. Like I saw that as like a big complaint where it's like, oh, it's not as good as Ready or Not. It's like, that's okay, it could be its own thing and like still be fun and good. And I had a really good time. I wasn't looking for Ready or Not. This is Abigail. It's like its own thing. So I was like,
Right.
whatever this is, like I want to be on board with this. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching Melissa Barrera absolutely drenched in blood. And yeah, I'm sure we'll get into some of the family things
Yes.
soon.
I will say too, it's nice to see Melissa Barrera just still in her Scream Queen bag.
Heck yeah.
Like even if it's going to be a shift from the Scream proper series, it's nice because I think that she fits really well in this genre. So I'm excited to see even more stuff from her in this.
Yeah.
In the horror movie world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fantastic. Any last thoughts on this?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Should we all learn ballet?
I think so.
Yeah.
I have
okay.
shoes still from college.
I
so
or
let's
yeah,
go.
I already know how to ballet.
Brian doesn't. Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah.
No.
Oh, you know all the positions.
Mhm.
First, second, third,
third and
Fourth,
fourth,
fifth, sixth.
fifth,
Mhm.
all the
Plie,
numbers.
Grand Plié,
something.
Bama,
Ronde de
Arabesque,
jambe.
Ronde de
Yes.
Jambe, En dehors.
Yes. All of
Yep.
it. You got it.
I support you all.
Yes. That's your next Halloween costume, Brian, is
Abigail?
ballerina. Is
Abigail?
Yes. Do it for the podcast. People want to see it.
I know.
Fantastic. Well, let's move on to our next section. Brains.
Mm,
Tasty.
very
Yes. So, going to the family life aspect of it. So, Jamie, you have worked for a bit in like sort of the criminal justice therapist adjacent world. So, my question to you is, if someone wanted to take back their life after engaging in some harmful, not so great, maybe some illegal activities, like these characters have in this movie, what have you found has worked best after people have like, healed and moved on? Like, how can they really kind of take back their life and kind of, you know, move forward?
that's a really good question. Good question.
Yay,
Good question.
thanks.
Good
Woo,
question.
good question.
Yeah, I mean, because like that's like considered like reentry. Like, if you have been involved in the criminal justice system,
Hmm.
perhaps like you like have in fact been convicted of a crime, you've spent time incarcerated, and then you're released. That's like referred to as like reentry. So it's like you coming back into society.
That's good
Um,
to know, because I was like, I didn't know if reentry was like a bad phrase to
no, I
use
mean
in
like
that
that it's
respect.
that is essentially like you're re-entering the world,
Yeah.
and like there was a period of time where you were like removed from it,
Mm,
and it's like that transition can be really really hard for like probably every reason that you could possibly think of. I think
hmm.
like, you know in terms of there are systems and things like with everything. There's like, programs and resources in place, but also like in reality, like things are really hard to access. It's not always consistent. It's just not enough. It's not supportive. Like
Mm.
there's so many barriers that get in the way of like, and also like, depending on what conditions you might still kind of be attached to, like there's certain expectations of you. Find a job immediately. You need to have housing. Like you need to have income to pay for said housing and all other expenses. Like there's so many things that you're immediately thrown back into that like it's really hard to readjust. And so I do think like I think it's helpful to know that there are like programs and resources and things like that out there, but also like being really realistic about like it doesn't suddenly become like really easy.
Yeah,
And
for
like
sure.
it's not like magically resolving all of the potentially a lot of the underlying things that were at play like beforehand. Like they are likely still at play now.
Hmm.
So I think like that's an important thing to keep in mind.
When
But
you're released from like a facility, uh, do they provide you or say, hey, here are some programs that you can take to like kind of help jumpstart like re-entry?
it really depends. Like
Okay.
truly, it's I feel like it's like place dependent. I feel like it's what resources did you access like potentially while you were incarcerated that then
Mm-hmm.
might potentially be like, providing support and figuring out what reentry looks like for you. So it really depends. And like I think there's still yes, I think a lot of people are like, forced into counseling, forced into rehabilitation, all kinds of things
Mm-hmm.
when they are not like ready to make those choices themselves. Like I think autonomy is like a really complex thing where like I believe that everybody should have the autonomy to like make decisions for themselves. And you can provide people with like all of the tools and resources, but like that still doesn't necessarily mean that people will take those resources and use them. So like that then
Right.
becomes a really big challenge. Um and like again, like emphasize enough like just how challenging it already is, and like it's like the cards are already stacked against you.
Yeah.
And so like in this movie in particular, it's like for some of them, at least like for Melissa Barrera and perhaps even like Dan Stevens' character, where they were both involved in the criminal justice system in different ways, but
Mm.
like are familiar enough with it where it's like this this is hopefully like the thing that they need in order to like jumpstart their way out of it. But at the same time, they're kind of referencing this like underlying stress about like actually returning home for a variety of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like there's a lot of trauma that I can imagine that they've both experienced. And like that also doesn't just go away. So again,
Right.
I feel like there's so many layers to like why it's so hard, and why perhaps like in some ways does something about this like feel easier, like at least for these particular characters within this context. I think that we get some of that. I'm not going to say that that's the case for like real life reality.
Mm-hmm.
um but I can say that like all of the expectations that are then put upon you after you're like re-entering society are feel impossible. Like it's just incredibly difficult. So it's like
Yeah.
can't emphasize enough just like how hard it is after like coming out of jail suddenly doesn't like resolve all of your problems. Everything still is the way that it
Absolutely.
is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I imagine that they would be hard.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And just like society, like you said, the societal pressures of it all. And,
Yeah.
people aren't the best
Yeah.
at treating people who come out of those types of situations. And so,
Mhm.
really, like, kind of the discrimination in that respect, too, of people just trying to go out into the world and other folks just seeing one thing and
Mhm.
writing them off because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, how hard is it to get to obtain a job when you have a criminal record?
Right.
Like
Right.
jobs are doing background checks, job like that information is like public record, and then like
Mm-hmm.
they're holding that against you. Like that's a huge deterrent for being able to obtain a job.
Yep.
And like there are organizations and programs that like prioritize hiring folks who like have been convicted,
Mm.
because like
Mm-hmm.
again everybody is like worthy of having a job. um
Yes.
but like those programs are like few and far between, so it's still incredibly difficult to actually get the job. And again, like that's like facilitating so many things. You need money to live, you need money for housing, you need money for like taking care of your family, like all of these things. And if you can't find the job, like what are you supposed to do?
Exactly, especially because even to apply for a job, you have to have an address. So how are you
Mhm.
getting a home? In order to get a job, is like pay for the home and all that stuff. Yeah, it's wild.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't think, like you said, society isn't particularly like, jumping to support
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
population. They're not like, "Oh my god, yes. Let's go." Not to say that
Right.
like some people obviously care, but like I would say largely society doesn't. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very sad situation, but it is nice to know that there are some programs that are really kind of fighting for that, and hopefully there will be more resources for people coming out of those type of situations. Great. My next question is still kind of Melissa Barrera focused, but in the aspect
she's great.
of, say it again.
She's great.
Oh, she's
We can
great. She's
focus on her.
fantastic. Uh, but in this movie, maybe not such a great mom. So that's what I want to talk about. So there's a comment that's made that it's not because she doesn't have any money that she is waiting to go back to her kid. It's a fear that she's just going to be a bad mom. So my question is, why do you think it's hard for parents to try and like reconnect with maybe estranged children after they might have had a complicated past?
Yeah, another really excellent
Yay!
question. Good question.
Woo!
Good question.
Thank you.
On a roll, 2 for 2.
I appreciate you.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I myself have not been in this situation, but like I
Hmm.
can also just imagine, you know, her wanting her child to have like a certain perception of her, and like I do talk to people a lot about like perfection, and it's like I have to be like this perfect mom, and there's no such thing. And then on
Yes.
top of that, if you feel like you've experienced a bunch of things that are like putting you further and further away from like this idealistic, not real goal, then it's like reinforcing this feeling of like I'm a failure. And like how do you then
Mm,
face your child or anyone if you're already feeling like you're absolutely failing?
yeah.
So it's like all of that like intrinsically happening, and we don't even get like any interactions between her and her son. There's a
Right.
phone call that she like goes to leave him, and that's like really the only interaction that we get, where she like just leaves a voicemail. So it's like, are there other experiences that she had with him that like, is he actively telling her that he doesn't want her in his life as his mom, or like other things like that? Like we don't know. We're only
Hmm.
getting her perspective, where it's like I have to right all of my wrongs before I can like return and like show that I have like fully 180 changed.
Hmm.
And I feel like that, because it's such a unrealistic goal, it's only like delaying the time before you actually like return, right? Like it's like
Yes.
when you set the expectation so high and unrealistic, you're never going to hit that goal. And so like the barriers are always going to be there stopping you. So it's like there will always be this like blocker in her head of like, well, I can't go back yet because like I haven't fixed this, or like I can't go back yet until I like have enough money, or I can't go back yet until like, I do that thing. So
Hmm.
it's like all of these things in her own head, all these expectations that like she set for herself that are potentially getting in the way of like her just showing up. Which like kind of her experience with Abigail is what I feel like she learns, is like obviously it's, a cherry on top, like happy ending to
Yeah.
this situation, but like I feel like that's like what the fairy tale ending is, what they're trying to tell us is like, it doesn't have to be, and I believe like it doesn't have to be perfect. Like
Mm,
showing up is like part of it. Like that's how you show like love and affection, like be there. And so like I feel like that's what she learns from Abigail, is just like she's there for Abigail in moments of crisis and need, and like, and Abigail looking for a parental figure is like that is what's most important.
yeah.
And I feel like she really takes that to heart. So I feel
Yeah.
like that, being being a good enough parent in general is like a great thing to strive for, and like a doable thing to strive for. Um, and I think that helps like challenge that mindset of like you got to be perfect, you got to do all
Hmm.
tick all these boxes. All the
Yeah.
like the wild TikTok moms that are doing
Oof.
some like baking things from scratch, or like making crayons from scratch, or like
Making what was it? The goldfish crackers from scratch.
mhm.
One lady was doing because she was like, I never give my kids processed food, and but they saw some kid had goldfish snacks, so I'm making them from scratch. And
Some
it's
of
like,
them are parody, and and I know that, and I'm also like fascinated that they have the skills to do that. But I think
mm-hmm.
the problem is like apps are rooted in like self comparison, and like
Yes.
you have to realize that when you're like going on to them, because if you're
Hmm.
not aware, then you just feel like shit when you're watching these people be like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not making like homemade goldfish for my kids, am I like a piece of shit mom? And it's like,
Exactly.
no, you don't have to make goldfish to be a perfect mom. There's so many other things that you already do. So like that stuff, it's like recognizing where it's like being silly, and also like you are not internalizing that you are a worse person, parent, whatever your
Hmm.
identity is, because you're not doing those things.
Yeah.
Like that's where I feel like the apps rot our brains a little bit.
I agree, which
Sure.
that is a whole nother conversation, but I absolutely
Yeah,
a
for real.
thousand percent agree with that, because you have the validation of views and comments of people saying, oh, you're so great for making this, blah, 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 which is what you said makes
Mhm.
people feel like shit if they don't
Mm-hmm.
do
Mhm.
those things.
Mhm.
Crazy, but
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's also like if that mom, you know what? Let's not get into it. Never mind.
ahead and say it. We're here, Brian.
Yeah,
Just
say
say
your
it.
thought.
That mom would not be baking these things if they weren't filming themselves. That
Sure.
like
Performative
there,
measures.
it's performative. I get a ton of things that's like, my kids asked for a movie night, so I'm gonna go above and beyond, and like they do this thing, and like
I'm gonna film a movie.
yeah, I mean it's just like we're
Only
watching
homemade movies
yeah.
here.
We're watching Barbie, so I'm gonna set up these blow up things, and I'm gonna, do this, and I'm just like, this is so performative and does not
Yes.
feel real for your 1.2 million followers or whatever it is. Like, this is like, and everyone's like, you're the best mom. Oh my God. I'm like, no, you're a good content creator. Like,
Mhm.
all of this is such horse shit. And like, you
Yes.
may be a great mom. I'm not saying that you're not a great mom. What I'm
Mhm.
saying is that it's like, I'm going to show you what it's really like to get ready in the morning with 3 kids, and I'm just like,
This is not realistic.
this is not real life.
Yes.
You're showing us through a lens. Like, it's like, I'm sorry, it makes me, I don't know, I also have very different opinions and feelings on like using your children as props for whatever you
Content
like.
creating.
That's
Yes.
I mean, that's a bigger conversation that we could have as well. These
Yeah.
conversations just keep getting bigger and bigger.
Yes.
But I don't know, and it's also a narcissism thing. It's like, watch me.
Mhm.
You're like, you're comparing you're like, watch me be a great mom. Like, I don't.
Yes.
There's a lot there. Anyway,
Right.
we should do Rotten Tomatoes.
All that to say, you will not see Brian and Jamie's child on the TikToks for performative
No.
measures.
No,
It's like,
I'm like very, I think I don't want my kid on social media until they're like 18 and they want to be on social media. I'm like, how long can I
honestly,
keep that going?
absolutely. I can't
Yeah.
agree with you more. Listen, Beyonce does it with her daughter, so, and she's just
This-
on the rise, on the way up.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
That's a terror. Like that social media having a child terrifies me so much. It's just like
Yeah.
just again, the way the impact that it has on like our mental health and well-being, especially in like those really formative years of like preteen adolescence. I am
Mhm.
terrified.
Yeah.
I will absolutely admit that.
Because that's definitely one thing about our generation that we can't learn from our parents, because
Mhm.
at least our generation got it at a time when we were like semi-formed brain-wise. Like,
Yes.
we got it in college, or at least I'm speaking from my own experience. Like, I
Yeah,
got
I got it in high school.
my first like real experience with social media, like outside of MySpace. Like, I was talking like Facebook. Like, I was in
Mhm.
college, like when colleges were getting it. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to think that like during our generation, the thing to be feared was like online chat groups and maybe like getting into you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
conversations with older people who would try to like go into like younger chat groups and
Mhm.
stuff. And like now it's just opened up so much to where there's just so many crazy things that could happen because we all just have so much access to each other, like a ridiculous amount of access to each other.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's interesting to think about. But again, we've parlor talked a full circle
Yeah.
of things here. Should we rotten tomatin this?
Let's do it.
Rotten
Let's do it.
tomatin.
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
All right. What do you think this has on Rotten Tomatoes? Jamie, why don't you go first?
I'll guess 71.
All right, Nikisha.
I'm gonna say 62.
Okay, this has an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Nice.
So the audience score is 85, so it's pretty the same
That's
across
high.
the board.
Well received, yeah.
The critics' consensus is carrying off well-worn vampire tropes with a balletic flourish. Abigail dances around the familiarity of its premise with a game cast and slick style.
Ooh, it's slick.
And then the audience score says Abigail is a little silly, a little scary, and a lot of fun. Just be prepared for a story that takes its time to get going and might be going on a little too long.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. What do you think this has on Letterboxd? Nikisha, yeah.
Then I'm gonna say 3.8.
All right. Jamie?
3, 4.
All right. This has a 3.2.
Okay.
And these are the most popular reviews on it. Actors look better when covered in blood. In this essay, I will.
Absolutely. Yes.
The next one is Melissa Barrera covered in blood is my favorite genre.
Yep, I agree.
And then
Love
this
it.
one is the most liked. In the name of the mother, orphan, the daughter, Megan, and the Holy Spirit, Abigail.
What?
Yeah, those are my deities now.
Yeah.
The orphan, Megan, Mithrigan, and Abigail. Okay.
Yeah.
It's so good.
That was funny.
I can dig it.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Fantastic.
Should we do the 4 S's?
Yes.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horns 4 S's.
Okay. The 4 S's are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. We're going to rate skulls, scares, and shakes from 1 to 10. 10 being the most, 1 being the least. Skulls is how well this handled human behavior and mental health. Yeah, that's right. Scares is
Yep.
how scary was it, and then shakes is this is a one and done. Can you shake it off type of thing? And then we'll get into suggestions. But Jamie, why don't you start with your scares? Your shakes. No, your skulls.
Nope. Wow.
Start with your skulls.
Process of elimination.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we got there.
Skulls.
Hilarious.
So for skulls, I gave it a 6 because I do feel like there was a lot of like strategic problem solving, I would
Mhm.
say.
Mm.
Even if like the rules kind of shift and change, I do feel like in terms of people's choices and like decision making, yes, you have like some stupider people, but you also have some like smarter people who are like, okay, like let's like actually think clearly about our next moves. And like that's what a lot of this movie I feel like was, so it kind of bumped up a lot of the skulls scores for me. For scares I gave it a 4. Probably more so just because like it's a really gory like it's just really gory. It's not
Mhm.
super scary or like overly tense.
Mhm.
But like there's just a truly wild amount of blood and body parts and etc that like have to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
For shakes, I'm giving it a 4.5. Just thinking about all the Dracula movies that have been coming out in recent years, and like it's like memorable enough. It's not like the worst one of all of them. I feel like it definitely has its moments, but like I'm curious to see how this measures like as time goes on. I don't know whatever the next Dracula thing will be. Like, will I
Mhm.
still think of this first? Will I think of other recent Dracula movies? I don't know. That's kind of how I was feeling about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nikisha?
Yeah, Skulls, I gave it a 5. I thought that people were peopling pretty well in this, given the circumstances. Scares, I gave it a 3 for the Bloods. And Shakes, I gave it a 6. I had a good time watching it, and yeah, the camp for me was it, and the cast of characters.
Yeah, Nikisha, ours are pretty close. I did skulls as a 6, scares as a 3, and then shakes as a 6.
Nice.
I gave it a 6 because of how I think I'm going to enjoy it less on a rewatch. Um, just because of all the exposition and knowing what's happening. I thought that was a lot of the fun of, on a second watch, I might just want to go to the kills or something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. So my suggestion is season 6, episode 4 of Black Mirror, which is Maisie Day. I'm that is the one with the pop star who decides to just kind of like hide away from everyone and disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I'm going to keep it at.
Is that the
Yep.
Miley Cyrus one or no?
No, that's the next
Oh,
season.
okay.
It's the most recent season.
Oh, okay.
I will. I don't want to say, if you haven't seen it. That's why I don't want to say anything else
Yeah.
about it. Um,
Probably
but
have. I just forgot.
yeah. That's my suggestion. Nikisha, do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, for some reason this made me think of like Blade, the first Blade, just with the vampires, but also just like a little bit of the campiness of it. Yes. And yeah, so that's what I'm gonna suggest. Obviously, yeah, if you want to watch Ready or Not too, but
Right.
yeah.
Ready
Ja-
or Not too.
We are getting one.
Mm-hmm.
Aye. Exciting times.
Jamie?
So speaking of other Dracula movies, Renfield
Yes.
was one of mine. But also in terms of another movie that I think is equally wildly violent, and very bloody and gory, Violent Night.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So good.
Cool. We did it.
All right. Well, that wraps up our episode of Abigail, aka Abigail. You can follow us on all of the social medias: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Talk Horror Pod, POD. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
You can listen to us wherever you get podcasts. So, of course, you can find us on YouTube. Hi, YouTube.
Yay.
You can also find us wherever you get your audio podcasts, things like Spotify and, of course, Apple Podcasts. Rate and review us there. 5 stars, please.
And thank you.
Thank you.
How should we sign off on this, guys?
Catherine Newton Redemption.
Aye. Justice for Catherine Newton has come. I love it. Yes. I mean, I'm excited to see what else, she's gonna be in. She's been kind of like thrust into this like spotlight. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Mhm.
We'll see
Yeah.
what happens.
It makes me want to rewatch Freaky.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I still want to rewatch Lisa Frankenstein. I think about that movie often.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
Yes. I had a really good time watching that. All right, guys. Well, that's it. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.